With a swift move, the armed forces of Ukraine closed the cauldron of vengeance. Our deadly counterattack buried Putin's army. The Russians have been driven into a kill zone. There is no way out anymore. An apocalypse in the very heart of the regime. Ukrainian drones pierced even the most heavily fortified bunkers of the Russian leadership. Shock! Lukashenko's bloody secret revealed. What Minsk tried to hide in a panic has come to light. India humiliated Putin in front of the whole world. Just one question from a journalist, and the bunker grandpa fell to his knees. The Kremlin script was torn to shreds. All this and more in our episode of Hellpoint. The cauldron of war is boiling over. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs finally did it. This counterattack of ours drove the generals in the Kremlin to hysteria. The Ukrainian armed forces shattered Putin's plans near Kupiansk. A deadly kill zone buried an entire Russian army. The enemy's logistics are cut off. There's no way out. Putin's propaganda simply burst, and they're desperately trying to hide it. All the details from the front line are in the following report.
The defense forces have turned the situation around near Kupiansk. They pushed back the Russian occupation army on the northern outskirts of the city and created a kill zone around the settlement. This was stated by Viktor Tryhubov, head of the communications department of the Joint Forces grouping. Despite Putin's tall tales about his army capturing Kupiansk, the situation for the Russians there is only getting worse. On this front, things are only deteriorating for them. Thanks to the work of our drones, the armed forces of Ukraine have managed to completely cut off the enemy's supply routes there.
These are exactly the parts of the front where physically a person simply cannot be present because they are monitored by drones from both sides. And in fact, these very tactics are what allow Ukraine's defense forces today to carry out, and I hope continue to carry out in the near future, defensive operations in the city of Pokrovsk, in Myrnohrad, and in our other settlements.
Meanwhile, the situation in Pokrovsk remains difficult for now. The occupiers are trying to break through the defenses and outflank them. The city from the flanks. However, the defense forces are actively destroying the enemy and not allowing them to amass forces. This was reported by Yevhen Lisichuk, commander of the 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Air Assault Forces. The military note that enemy units are constantly advancing, trying to seize the city and improve their tactical position. At the same time, the notional line of demarcation there still runs along the railway, while the northern part of the settlement is fully controlled by the armed forces of Ukraine.
Our formidable forces have primarily concentrated their efforts on steadfastly holding the crucial northern part of the city, specifically to maintain a vital and secure corridor leading directly from Myrnohrad. Myrnohrad itself is widely considered to be something of a significant and strategic stronghold located in the eastern region. This is the commander's decision. He reinforced the flanks of Pokrovsk's defense, and
while some defense force units are bravely fighting on the line of demarcation, others are not forgetting to strike at Russian rear positions. Just recently, GUAR soldiers distinguished themselves by striking the Kacha military airfield in Crimea. They managed to destroy a MiG-29 fighter jet as well as the Irtysh airfield radar complex. This was near the temporarily occupied Simferopol.
It seems that Ukraine has found a foolproof formula for striking Crimea using heavy drones. FP2S, which, despite having a warhead weighing over 100 kilograms, are capable of reaching any point in the occupied territory where Starlink is operating, making it extremely difficult to counter these drones with electronic warfare systems. So we can expect new footage from the Phantoms very soon.
Last night, the Russian oil industry also came under attack. In the Krasnodar region, local residents report hearing about 5 explosions near the city of Temryuk. Later, videos of the aftermath of these strikes appeared online. It became known that the largest port terminal in Temryuk was hit. Apparently, the strike targeted a gas reservoir.
The Temryuk port and the Syzran oil refinery were blown up. And while this refinery had already been hit before, the port of Temryuk had not really been targeted. Definitely not this year. Temryuk is an important logistical hub in the Azov Sea for the Russian terrorist locusts. Essentially, it is a key export hub on Russia's southern coast. Located on the Taman Peninsula on the coast of the Azov Sea, it holds strategic importance both for Russian logistics and for servicing external shipments, including those related to energy, agricultural products, and very importantly, military cargo.
In particular, it was from here that the Russians transferred reserves of fuel and weapons to the Russian Federation's grouping, which has become more active in southern Ukraine in recent weeks.
It's an apocalypse for the top brass of the Russian Federation. Ukrainian drones pierced the most heavily protected Russian positions. The enemy is in a panic. Top targets have come under attack. The explosion struck right at the heart of the regime, where the leadership, who for decades considered themselves untouchable, resides. What exactly did the Ukrainian armed forces destroy? Sensational details, don't miss it. In
recent months, Chechnya has become the epicenter of tension amid rising intensity of attacks by Ukrainian drones. Airports in the North Caucasus have suspended their operations. A drone strike was recorded in the area of the Grozny city skyscrapers on Kadyrov Avenue. One of the high-rises sustained damage. The video shows that at least 10 floors were affected. A day before this, Kadyrov declared that he was ready to go to war with Europe at any moment and promised to make it apologize.
We definitely won't stand on ceremony, Vladimir Vladimirovich. We're waiting for your order. Everything will end very quickly and clearly, not in favor of those who decided to start a war with Russia. I have one question. Vladimir Vladimirovich, if all this starts, you won't be upset with us if they immediately apologize voluntarily, will you?
It should be noted that the high-rise district is located 800 meters from Kadyrov's residence. His administration was seriously frightened because Dondon might not have survived this blow given his serious health problems.
Grozny and Grozny city are symbols of the Kadyrov regime, and as I understand it, the main achievement of the Kadyrov regime.
The damaged Grozny city building houses the offices of several Chechen government agencies.
In particular, according to mapping services, the building houses the Chechen Ministry of Tourism, the Regional Department for Relations with Religious and Public Organizations, the Regional Office of the Ministry of Justice, the Chechen Security Council, the Republic's Audit Chamber, the Local Ombudsman's Reception Office, the United Russia Party's Reception Office, and the Regional Election Commission.
The main target of the attack may have been the FSB building, which is located nearby. But Russian RAP made its own adjustments.
This is not a strike against the civilian population, it's a strike against government authorities. Absolutely legitimate, absolutely lawful.
This is already the second strike on the region this week. Earlier, UAVs struck FSB buildings in Oshku and Martinita, as well as the district police department in Gedames. Chechnya had not experienced attacks by the armed forces of Ukraine since December of last year. At that time, the barracks...
The Russian National Guard came under attack. And in order to seriously distract them, we strike at them.
Ukrainian defenders continue to fight the occupiers, destroying their weapons behind enemy lines. This time, as preparations were underway to launch Shaheds from Milerovo in the Rostov region, several Ukrainian drones struck the UAV launch platforms.
This was one of 6 locations from which the Shaheds were launched. Milerovo remains just as Milerovo, a town located in Rostov Oblast, Russia, serves as an important administrative center within the region. Situated in the southwestern part of the country, it plays a role in local infrastructure and community life.
It is an important road and rail hub. From Milerovo to the line of contact is more than 150 kilometers. From here, Russia launches Shaheds at Ukraine almost every night, doesn't it?
It will be far away there. Look, something beautiful white is flying gracefully. Oh wow, Mama dear.
After successful attacks by Ukrainian defenders on Russian airfields this year, new air defense positions appeared at the Milerovo air base, positions that were not there even in 2024. Hangars were being built on the sites of open aircraft parking areas.
Of course, we pay special attention to this facility, which is a major base for Shaheds. Shaheds have now become one of our top 3 priorities. Our task is to destroy them. These are Shahids, these are glide bombs, and these are ballistic missiles. These 3 components, if we learn how to fight them and stand up to them, our lives will become much better.
Foreign agencies are also reporting record high intensity of drone attacks on Russian regions. In November, the number of drones launched from Ukraine increased. This is also confirmed by official data from the Russian Ministry of Defense. Ukraine, meanwhile, continues its fight against the occupiers.
An urgent assassination attempt on Zelensky, an aerial battle right next to the Ukrainian president's plane. New details have already shaken the internet. And all of this happened against the backdrop of the approval of several controversial points in the peace plan. Has it really become known who is actually behind the attack? And what does such a coincidence mean? The hottest details about this and more are coming up in just a moment.
A drone attack on the presidential plane near Dublin Airport. On December 4th, the Irish publication The Journal reported that late in the evening of December 1st, 4 unidentified military-type drones violated the flight zone and flew over the sea in the direction of the flight path of the plane carrying Volodymyr and Olena.
Volodymyr Zelensky, the current and widely recognized president of Ukraine, has emerged as a profoundly significant and prominent figure on the international political stage, directly within the countries of the European Union. And the aggressive attack on sovereign airspace, the severe restriction of various European countries in utilizing their own national airspace because it could potentially be blocked by sophisticated Russian drones, this is all a very stark and urgent reminder that we absolutely must not rule out, among other crucial considerations, the distinct possibility of actively seeking a robust military response to these provocative Russian actions.
The President and First Lady of Ukraine arrived in Ireland on the night of December 2nd. They were met by Prime Minister Michel Martin. The plane landed just a few minutes before the incident, although the drones did reach the area where the Ukrainian commander-in-chief was supposed to fly through. Then the UAVs flew toward an Irish Navy vessel which had been secretly deployed at sea for the Ukrainian president's visit. The Irish Security Service considers the incident a hybrid attack. An investigation is currently underway. At the
moment, it seems to me that what they wanted to do, since it was, after all, the Russian special services, was to demonstrate their capabilities, including, let's say, the possibility of targeting Zelensky on the territory of the European Union. That we are capable of this, in other words, it's a very psychological move, a demonstration that we can do this, and that's it.
On Friday, December 5th, the meeting between representatives of the US and Ukraine concluded. At this meeting, the Ukrainian delegation, led by NSDC Secretary Rustem Umerov, sought to clarify exactly what issues the American intermediaries Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner discussed with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin.
The US, this is the game you're playing, in a group where, essentially, they're trying to protect the aggressor. At the same time, it's necessary to constantly remind the US at all such meetings, like in Miami and others, that, guys, there is the concept of international law. And there is the concept of domestic American law. There is a law passed in 2017 stating that America will never recognize any territories annexed by Russia from Ukraine. So, when you say that you recognize Crimea, you are violating your own legislation.
Nevertheless, the national security strategy published by the White House states that friendship with Russia is a priority for the United States.
Any action that voters strongly dislike will lead to their defeat in the elections. There are probably less than a few years left until the elections in the US. On November 2nd, 2026, there will be elections for the House of Representatives and a third of the Senate as well. And here, first and foremost, Republican politicians understand that the past, let's put it this way. To draw an analogy with Ukraine, the local elections on November 4th, 2000 showed a complete victory for the Democrats. Not because the Democrats were so good, but because it was a classic protest vote.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance believes that in the coming weeks we can expect good news regarding the resolution of Russia's war against Ukraine. According to Vance, the U.S. has already made progress on this issue but has not yet reached the finish line.
America is making concessions to Russia, constantly. Envoys and delegates come and they tell the Russians that we're ready to make concessions, we're ready to recognize part of Donbass, we're ready to recognize Crimea, and so on. And instead of saying that this is enough for them, the Russians ask, can we have this as well? And what about that? And these concessions to the aggressor lead to the aggressor's appetites growing. That's more or less how it is, give or take.
The Wall Street Journal, citing its sources, writes that European leaders are advising President Zelensky not to agree to Russia's demands without security guarantees from the United States. According to Spiegel, during the conversation, European leaders expressed concerns that the US might betray Ukraine on the issue of territories without providing clarity on security guarantees.
Unbelievable. Belarus's terrible secret has been revealed. Lukashenko has gotten himself into another scandal. Minsk has taken a bloody step in funding Putin's secret drone center. The Belarusian factory is not just helping the occupiers organize drone hunts for Ukrainians. It has effectively become a bridge for circumventing sanctions for the largest UAV manufacturer in the Russian Federation. And that's not all. Which detail turned out to be a real shock for the whole world? All the details are coming up in just a moment.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Pots, containers, garbage bins, and wheel stop systems. This is the kind of product from the Homel plant Santax that you can see on display. But under the table, Belarusians are also quite successfully trading drones. Santax got caught running an underground production in June of this year. Amid the reports about kitchenware, this appeared. This is about a quadcopter with a thermal imaging camera called Pioneer. The publication has now been removed from the website. But it was thanks to this publication that journalists were able to unravel the thread that led to the most powerful in the Russian army, to the top-secret Rubicon Center for Unmanned Technologies.
Wherever they are stationed, wherever they work, they envy our units.
The main combat drone of Rubicon is the VT-40 Kamikaze UAV, also known as Sudoplatov. This is the most widely produced drone manufactured by the Russian company Rostakt as part of the Judgment Day project. Currently, the manufacturer is under sanctions from Switzerland and the European Union. A few months before being blacklisted, Rostakt was headed by Pavlo Nikitin from Belarus. He moved to Russia in the 2000s and now owns several companies that fulfill orders for law enforcement agencies as well as the Russian defense industry. But as journalists have found out, Nikitin did not sever ties with his homeland, even though he renounced his Belarusian citizenship back in 2010.
Here, together with his associates, he runs at least 4 companies. One of them is called SAT, the Santax plant. Nikitin supplies his Belarusian company with Western components from the Czech Republic, Italy, Poland, and the United States. Moreover, these deliveries took place even after the sanctions were imposed.
Journalists also got hold of documents regarding shipments of goods that are not described in any way. By the way, similar invoices with unspecified goods were sent to the Russian Rostakt from China, amounting to millions of dollars.
The same kind of unspecified equipment is also supplied to Rostakt by the Gomel manufacturer. The tableware manufacturer is the Santax plant. In documents from a source in the tax service, we found 135 payments totaling more than 14 billion Russian rubles, which is over $152 million. BRC has not yet been able to determine exactly what kind of equipment the Santax plant sells to Rostakt. And
here are supplies of drones prohibited for sale in Russia from the world-famous company DJI. Journalists have confirmed this. According to their information, the Belarusian plant, which officially displays pots in the windows of its stores, but in fact it re-exported DJI drones worth $2 million to Russia in 2022 to 2023. In total, according to calculations by the Belarusian Investigative Center, 14 Belarusian companies are helping Russians kill Ukrainians and organize safaris to hunt them. Thank you. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, they have supplied 20,000 drones worth $34 million. And of course, these figures are far from reflecting the real scale of assistance to Russia's military aggression.
Putin's loud fiasco. India simply brought the bunker dweller to his knees. The video is blowing up the internet. This question from the journalist shattered all of the Kremlin's prepared talking points. A complete failure in front of the whole world. So what happened at the meeting with Modi and what further humiliations await Putin? Find out in the report coming up in just a moment.
Problems with the West are forcing them to cling more tightly to old partners. Putin flew to India, a country he loves only as much as he can profit from it.
Moscow is begging New Delhi to save the Russian market.
And to make the visit look more ceremonial, they organized an entire show of Putin mania for him. Upon the Kremlin dictator's arrival, there was a red carpet. And a so-called cultural program right by the plane. It's truly interesting to consider who ultimately benefits more from this significant visit. Is it Russian President Putin, after all? Or perhaps
consider India itself a nation of immense global significance. While they may not be leading the charge in every aspect of international affairs today, they actively engage and collaborate extensively with other major global economies. Together, these nations are deeply invested in contemplating and shaping the future trajectory of the world. I believe this comprehensive and forward-looking narrative is precisely what President Putin will be diligently selling and promoting within his own country, emphasizing a vision of global cooperation and future prosperity.
But the height of absurdity was still ahead. On an Indian TV channel, they showed a cartoon where Putin and the President of India are driving past oil rigs and singing a song about friendship. But you might wonder, what does oil have to do with it? It's actually very simple. India has reduced its purchases and now Putin will be begging them to resume. The question is
not just about oil, but about major economic partners, Russia's trading partners, who are supposed to appear in the absence of trade relations, for example, with the European Union, which are quickly being destroyed. Russian oil really does need to go somewhere. And all of this is very important for Ukraine today. During
the visit, all of Putin's grandeur lasted only until a local journalist asked him about Russian-speaking Ukrainians from the occupied Ukrainian cities, which cornered the Kremlin old man.
Putin is doing this to us. We are his people. Many of the women I spoke to were shocked. What can you say to the people in eastern Ukraine whose families are actually in Russia, who regularly move between Russia and Ukraine? What would you tell them?
I didn't understand the question. Shocked by what?
It seems that people in Russia have stopped looking down on Indian imports. One of the reasons for the bunker dwellers' visit is precisely to increase purchases of Indian goods.
Contacts with India are much more respectful than contacts with China. Surprising as it may seem, because first of all, in Russia, they are very afraid of Chinese expansion. In the Far East, the attitude is generally very negative. The attitude towards the Chinese, such deep contacts. But
India would like to get a couple of fighter jets and an air defense system from Russia. Although it would seem this wouldn't be unnecessary for Russia itself either. Russia, in turn, also promised to ensure uninterrupted fuel supplies. Interesting. But does Russia itself...
I was just wondering if you have managed to acquire a sufficient quantity of all the necessary items and resources for the upcoming event, ensuring that there will be absolutely no shortages or deficiencies whatsoever, and that everything is perfectly prepared and readily available for everyone involved to proceed without any complications or concerns? And most notably, it is importantly worth noting that
this is something that is not visible in Putin's visit. Propaganda. Russia has agreed to launch an Indian bureau for Russia Today. But why would that be? This
propaganda works very, very well indeed. Its effectiveness is truly undeniable. It truly does. I think they will stoke anti-American sentiments. They will stoke anti-European sentiments. I would draw attention to an article by Alexander Stubb, which was recently published, where he writes that the main global battleground will unfold precisely in the countries of the global south.
In the context of international isolation and sanctions pressure, Moscow demonstratively emphasizes its closeness with India, calling it almost the most powerful state. Anything as long as they agree.
And we need robust military cooperation and strategic collaboration, advanced military technical cooperation and technological exchange to further develop and strengthen these crucial ties, because India is one of the most powerful and influential states, a pivotal center of power and influence across the Asian continent. It is absolutely essential and strategically important for us to forge exceptionally close, robust, tight, and genuinely mutually beneficial relations and partnerships with them.
Also, even before Putin's visit, Russia and India resolved a decade-old issue. Delhi agreed to lease a nuclear submarine from Moscow for $2 billion for 10 years.
It seems to me that the main point here is that we recently saw an escalation of the military conflict between India and Pakistan. And in fact, things weren't going very well in India. I think that military issues are quite important for India. I don't know who made concessions to whom, but it's believed that they also need the submarine.
No matter how strained relations with India may seem, sanctions and isolation are forcing Putin to do everything possible not to lose even such partners. That's all from us for now. This was me, Renata Aslanova. Even more hellish news in our next episode. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon!